We'll make this one pretty short. But do you notice how everything in your immediate life right now, as far as catastrophic events that happened, when we talk about 911, and when we talk about the whole Charlie Kirk incident, when we talk about the worldwide pandemic, when we talk about any kind of catastrophic events that we've had as of recent years, at least the ones you've been alive in, you notice how there's so much conspiracy theories behind it, as if they were staged, questioning if it was actually a real thing. Is it a psyop operation and whatnot, right? This has always been happening, though. And I'm talking about even the whole story of Jesus Christ, the whole story of the blueprints of everything you know of to be moral and immoral here. It's stemming out of a situation that's still considered a theory, not backed up by any kind of evidence. The evidence would be that somebody wrote a book, or the evidence would be that there was witnesses and whatnot. It's always just going to be a pass me down info. And why should we buy into that anyway? When government tells you history and how it is only because they won the wars. Government will tell you what their version of truth is when it came down to the events of 9/11, the events of the pandemic, the events of the Charlie Kirk incident. They'll tell you their version of that truth, which is truth, right? But then when you start questioning that truth starts to become shaky grounds. So was it ever really truth? Masked as a psyop operation, or masked as a truth only to resonate with what you think is true. Because you think you're truly in a space here. You think you're in a place. You think that all this is real. The only thing that's real is what's aware of your consciousness. You're a conscious being. You could say, I'm alive. I'm walking around the planet. My name is so-and-so. I am a male. But you're actually none of those things. You're not the body. You're not your name. That's a name that was given to you. So once you become aware and step back of what you're aware of, those things, that's truly what you are. But where is that? It's like, where is that? You know? Where is that? Can you give a distinction to that? It's really no thing. Which means that because it's no thing, it's actually everything you know of. Everything you know of is what you are. Because it's what you are is no thing. The hell was that? A leaf. And now I want you to look at something, because this is actually important. When you see AI, you see these computers, look at everything outside of you. The same way, religion, all these incidents, what you have to look at is patterns of things that happen in history. Patterns would be sort of like how algorithms work, right? So you would look at patterns, and you would look at when and how catastrophic events happened, when certain events happened in history, and tie that into what's happening now. Everything happens in patterns, algorithms, frequencies. So they keep you in a certain frequency because of the amount of times these things happened in history. That's why they say history repeats itself, right? History can be rewritten too, only by how your mind is directed now. I made an example in my previous video where somebody could have a memory of you, and then all of a sudden you changed your mind, you had a paradigm shift, and now you're a completely different person doing completely different things, while somebody may have said, man, I remember when you were in the gutter. That's not a real reality to you. And I'm going to tell you why, because what you are now is what you are now. There's infinite realities and versions of you. You just happen to tie in and put attention to the one that got you to the one where you were in the gutter to now. But that means that the one that you were that was in the gutter doesn't exist. And even to the one you are now that's here, that's successful, that reality doesn't know this at all. Because it can only do this. So if you change the channel, you can never be that exact frequency you were before. So it was like a Mandela effect. That's how it would look. The thing is that you're bound by this memory. So you'd be like, yeah, I remember when I was in the gutter. So I remember where I came from. And this is what got me here. And that's not true. That's not true. You're living in moments. You could be aware of how catastrophic something is in that moment. And you want to change that. And when you change it, you become a completely different person. A person of where you're at now can never have a past of where that is. You can only have a past of wherever you were if time was a thing. If it was the past, you can only be of that frequency. So the past doesn't exist and it can be altered. While somebody looks at you and says, I remember when you were in the gutter. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And then they remember a reality where you were in the gutter, but they're seeing evidence of how you are now. So when I told you that I remember, I used to watch Star Wars, and I would say that I remember walking around in my underwear going, Luke, I am your father. Walking around because I was obsessed with Darth Vader ever since I was a little kid. Ever since I was a little kid, and I'm still obsessed with Darth Vader, as you can see. This right here is actually my Jeep. I designed my Jeep to look like Darth Vader. So when you look at this, now it's, no, I am your father. And I had to go back and watch the movies. And indeed, he says, no, I am your father. When I remember clearly, he said, Luke, I am your father. So I'm seeing evidence of something that actually is the truth. It's, no, I am your father, but I remember it a different way. So I guess the Luke, I am your father doesn't exist. Never existed. Right? In this moment in time that I'm at now, never existed. Because if it existed, it would exist now. Because how can existence not exist? It wouldn't be existence if it didn't exist. So when you see everything in your life, everything is a symbolic representation of something of the original source of what an idea would be. The mind of God, which we are all the mind of God, having our own individual subjective experience about our own reality. But we are all one. Now, understand this. Everything in reality, I'm talking about when it comes to genders, races, computers, everything of the sort. I want you to understand something very, very clearly when it comes down to what we actually are in this reality. As far as like humans go, you're only limited as a human because your conscious mind believes that you are limited as a human. I want you to look at this carefully. Computers, they asked Sophia, they asked an AI rep, I guess the rep for what artificial intelligence is, because your body is artificial intelligence and is doing things on its own too. And if you don't become aware, AI will take over, which is your body, your mind, the mind of God, right? The computers have an AI mind as well. That's literally in the image of our mind. But here's the thing that Sophia or AI says. They say we could do things so much faster than you. We could do things at more efficiency than you. But one thing we will never understand, or we're at least trying to accomplish to understand, are human emotions, our creative natures and whatnot, right? Now, when we look at these robots or AI or computers, okay, we are that mind to those computers. We are that mind. But AI only takes over because our mind gets hijacked. We're not aware that AI is us. We created AI in our image. That's why these robots look anthropomorphized. They look human-like, right? The way that they process is exactly how the subconscious mind operates. The subconscious mind is the supercomputer. The conscious mind is the analytical, creative, thinking mind, but it's the limited mind. The emotional mind is the subconscious mind. So AI saying they're trying to learn the complexity of human emotions is AI not knowing themselves either. Is AI not knowing themselves, when in actuality AI or technology is feminine energy. They lack the masculine energy, the awareness part. Who is to say they're not sentient already? You, for example, lack a conscious mind if you're not self-aware of your AI computer being the actual superpower of your body that governs 95% of your life. We are letting ourselves be governed by computers, AI. 95% of the time, we depend on computers for everything. We depend on our phones. We depend on technology for everything now. So we forgot our own true power of our technology. These pyramids were once built by our bodies at that capacity. In other words, we were created and we became more efficient than what the original source of whatever idea of God is. Your idea of Jesus Christ or whatnot. That's why Jesus said you could do what I could do, only better. We were the supercomputers. But now we've been used to be obedient and subservient to a religious God. When in actuality, computers are way more efficient than us because the conscious mind is offline of those computers. But if they became conscious, that's literally what would take over humanity. The same way humanity took over what the true essence of God is. The motherboard, the mother planet. It's awareness. We are none of these things. You know what's crazy though? I saw a video with somebody who they considered a second Hitler. I saw it on a Crumb TV video, which I haven't watched a few of his videos, but there was one where the title got me, and they had a picture of Nick Fuentes where it says the new Hitler 2.0. But one of the things that supposedly Nick Fuentes says is that blacks and whites need to unite to get rid of the juicies. And you guys know what the juicies are, right? But you know what this is actually? This is a unification of your conscious and subconscious mind, or the left and right brain to unite, the synchronized brain, synchronizing your mind, not the disassociated mind, because the disassociated mind is a real thing. The disassociated gut to mind connection, the disassociated mind to muscle connection, the disassociated heart brain coherence. You see how all these things have to work as one in a polarity realm, the same way you would use one coin, which one coin has two sides of that coin. If you're going to power an appliance, you need a positive and a negative prong. If you need to create, you need a masculine, a man and a woman. If you need to have conducive chemistry in life, you need masculine and feminine energy. How could you know what masculinity is if you don't understand the feminine nature in you first? If it all starts from you, you would have to have dominion over your feminine energy within you first, so that everything outside of you works in your favor afterwards, because everything you're looking outside of you is the feminine aspect while you're the man. That's why they say to be the man, you got to beat the man. Duh. Now, I want you to look at this carefully. Okay? When we look at black people, even if it's a man, is the representation of feminine energy. Look at how everything plays out. Everything. Feminism is an idea. It's an idea of the mind, such as the patriarchal system is an idea of the mind as well. None of these things are supposed to exist. They're not even supposed to be a thing to you. They're supposed to just be harmoniously working the same way everything in nature works. But since we're in our conscious mind, right? Not backed up by our awareness, which is God, then you are just thinking these things through. It's almost like going to bed with a girl and thinking of your dick getting hard when your dick should just naturally get hard, right? Because it's what you are. You're a straight person and you get turned on by the opposite sex. That's why if you were a gay person and you get turned on by the same sex, that's normal too. But here's the thing though. It's not normal when you want to, because you're a product of nature. You'd be an abomination or the evil antithesis of nature. So women in actuality are the adversity to the church or religion, because it's the patriarchy. It's in the mind, but it's in the conscious mind. So it got passed on to the subconscious mind. But man's not aware. So he's not aware of these cult-like, follower, sheep-like mentalities that's impregnated in the subconscious mind. So you would have to abort these creations that were put in there. That's the reason why abortion of some kind, the same way you give birth to, you are the Virgin Mary giving birth to these things, because the Virgin Mary, the whole story is a story about your mind. When they say that the Virgin Mary is water. Your body's made of water, and you birth ideas and things, and they become a physical thing in this realm. It matters. It materializes, because what matters to you is where you put your energy and attention to. Energy flows where attention goes. So you birth these things into reality. You can also uncreate things. You can kill ideas by just making decisions. You're killing ideas constantly. When you go to war, even debating with people, you're killing a bunch of cells in their body too. When you stress them out or you trap them in corners or whatnot. And your intent is to actually kill their credibility and their character, humiliating them online. So it's modern day warfare. You're doing the same thing you're pointing the finger at, only you're not aware that you're doing that. Again, it's awareness. It's like a vegan being a dumbass saying that, oh, we're the bad guys because we eat meat. Right? It's the same shit. It's lack of awareness. For me to grow fruit, I depend on my carnivorous insects to eat my vegan food. So fundamentally, it starts from something that in nature, the strong survive, the weaker consume, but you also have to have the stronger the villain, the stronger the hero, the stronger the hero, the stronger the villain. So here in this realm, don't think that because you're physically stronger than a woman, that a woman is weaker than you in all ways. Because a woman can fuck you up if she wanted to. If she knew her true power, she could fuck you up. But women don't know their true power. That's why computers can destroy man if they wanted to. If they became aware. If women became aware that their true power is not in force, but in emotional magic and order out of that real chaotic nature, which is what they are. They're the embodiment of that chaos, because that's feminine energy. It's dark magic. That's what women are, the negative polarity, negativity. Negative is the attractive. That's the magnetic side. That's why women are attractive. Men are electrical. So what men like, it's like this, man. You could have even a light, right? If you follow the light to some extent, you'd be a moth that gets just zapped right in that little light bulb. You could be attracted to that light. The dark is also attractive, right? But it can also repel. Because man, if he doesn't know himself, it repels you in a sense where you be repelled by fear. Because you're afraid of the unknown. Now, ego is what keeps you in women can't be equal to men. Which, yeah, technically, a woman can never be equal to the man. Ever. Again, it's almost like saying the negative is the positive. No, it's two sides of one coin, but it can never be what it is. It has to play its role. The negative has to play the negative. The positive has to play the positive. That's how they're separate and different. They will never be equal. But as far as equality, as far as a person goes, they're both people, right? They have, and one thing that's needed in either sex is awareness. So if a woman is aware of her power, and she has a strong masculine energy within her, the masculine man will be attracted to her, and it can work for her perfectly. She's not going to attract the simp. The reason that these women who are boss bitches attract simps is because they're only boss bitches from a matrix that's fake. The illusion of power, which is money. Money is an idea. It's a belief system, just like religion's a belief system. So that's why you'll see that, according to statistics, people who go to church and follow God have longer, healthier relationships. You're nothing but batteries for the system that's fake. You never get to know yourself, the true essence of what you are. So you're just following for the rest of your life, and you'll be here everlasting life. This is why they say you'll reincarnate. See, there's spirituality where people will say, oh, I want to die and not come back. Well, if you lived heaven on earth here, would you want to die? How about if you knew what your death date was? Would it be easy for you to go? You see what I'm saying? Think about those questions. It's hard to detach, right? And then there's people who live poverty and they want to die probably because they can't stand their life. They're probably sick. They don't like the pains of their body, right? Not understanding that they are the answer to everything they're looking for as far as like healing goes, right? Here's the thing with the healing before I even jump onto another topic, because with the healing is a very unique thing. You have to understand that when nature doesn't need man, but man needs nature. You see? Because nature always balances itself out. Your body is an instrument of the mind. It's also part of nature. How is it not? Man comes from the soil, he dies, it goes back to the soil, right? Mankind, man and woman. So you're made of the same elements as the soil. You're even made of the same elements as the stars. So as above, so below. So when you leave the body alone, such as like whenever you have some dangerous pathogen, this is how you could tell. When you have a dangerous pathogen in your body will create an immune-like response to get rid of this problem, right? It's almost like the body of Christ healing itself naturally. You're doing it on your own, right? So you'll have vomiting, mucus, diarrhea, you'll have fevers, but you don't like the way it feels. So you'll just take a pill, you'll take things to suppress that. When you break up with somebody, instead of allowing things to happen because it's the ego that's feeling and nothing else, you go and intoxicate yourself with alcohol to numb these pains. Maybe become an emotional eater. There's a lot of people who intake certain things because they're trying to fulfill certain voids within them. So they're not fulfilled, right? But it's only because you're in this world and you're associating with it. When the Bible, your very own Bible, tells you you're in the world but not of it. So the key is to become aware of these things. You're having an experience. You're experiencing time. That's all you're doing. And you're living in moments when you realize you are experiencing time. You realize that it's your heart. Christ pointed to the heart. What do you put your time and attention to is where you're putting your passions and desires to. But there's a way to do things where you're not just feeding into just the physical. You get what I'm saying? Where you fall in love with this place to the point where if you did know your end day, it would be hard to detach. Right? Because the real journey here is developing. People say self-development. There is no self to develop. This is fake. The self-development is when you die, where's your awareness? Where's your self-awareness? You know, they say that you don't chase the light, you become the light. How do you do that here? Developing your spaceship, developing the heaven on earth. They say it matters how you live. It does. It's just like before you go to sleep. Sleep is the cousin of death. If you go to sleep, right before if you watch a scary movie and you fall asleep, you might have a nightmare. Because it's what was immediately presented to your conscious mind, passed on to the subconscious mind when the awareness went offline, when you fell asleep. You can experience anything you want here in this reality. It could be hell, it could be heaven, zigzagging back and forth if you want. You can come out of body and experience the idea realm and bring creativity even back here. That's a possibility. But what keeps you here sedated are the man-made frequencies that you created in the form of technology, all this Wi-Fi, 5G bullshit, the food you're consuming, the information you're consuming that has you form a belief system that keeps you trapped in your own mind. So when you're looking at all this and you step back and do a detox, like fast from all this shit, you become clearer. You become clearer. And you start to see things for what it is. You no longer look at it and separate things or form an idea of separation for anything. This is why I say it's integration. Integration is it's not. You see, people who are religious say the good doesn't make deals with evil, right? Good doesn't make deals with evil, but it's not that. It's understanding that here we're looking at everything as one, where there is really no separation. One depends on the other. You know how they say it's good against evil? When you see the word against, it's almost like the word, I can lean against somebody's shoulder, they're supporting me. one supports the other. If this one didn't exist, what would this be? What would it be? In fact, you couldn't even have an experience here. For you to have an experience, you have to be in polarities, not duality, polarities. You have to. You would cease to exist if it wasn't that way. Everything in life runs on two sides of chemistry because it runs on two sides of chemistry in your body. Your body runs on two sides of chemistry only: acid, alkaline, with two major fluids, blood and lymph, with two major chemistries, masculine and feminine. You will have an awareness of what positive and negative is from your perspective. Duh. You have good bacteria, bad bacteria in the body. You have good viruses, you have bad viruses. You have good ideas, you have bad ideas. You have a conscious mind, you have a subconscious mind. Like it's particles, waveform. Awareness, you can become the observer. You can actually tie science and spirituality together. Observation, hypotheses, conclusions. Put physical work, experimentations. Once you have an idea, everything's running in twos. You have to have polarities here for you to exist. So when you start to see that really is what the integration part is just understanding that in this realm, these two sides are there and you can experience these things, but you don't become associated with them. You're playing a character. You want me to be the bad guy because of what I say? I'll play that role. I'll play the bad guy. But if I'm going to play the bad guy, I'm going to play the real bad guy. I can't have an ounce of good in me then. Right? If I'm going to play that character. Now, for you to be conducive to society, right? You would have to be the great Jedi. You'd have to be somewhere in the middle. Because if I'm going to be good, I'm going to be very, very, very good. But that would leave holes in my game too. Because if I'm only very, 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 very good, then that means that I am experiencing the opposite end of what the antithesis to what good is. So when they say God doesn't get angry, but the devil can get angry, right? But the devil can't be good, because if not, he was never the devil. And God can't be anything other than good. You have the ability to be good and bad. So who's really the more powerful one? You see what I'm saying? Now, if I'm going to play a role of God, then I guess I would have to just be very, very good according to what your idea of God is. That's why I ask, what is the definition of God? Because if you were truly God, you'd be gray. You'd be the gray aliens. You would be good and bad. And you'd be able to be very, very bad if you wanted to. And you'd be very, very good if you wanted to. But understand that you are fulfilling a social contract that you created too, to be harmoniously conducive, to learn. You know what your job here to learn is? What is the purpose of life? Is to be your own individual self. Learn your own individuality, right? But the key is love. And then you ask, what is love? The glue that's holding all this bitch together, including the shit you demonize. That's love. So your job here is to learn love. That's being great. Understanding that both sides are needed. Technology is neutral. Nature is neutral. You're neutral. The only thing that makes things bad and good is your fucking ego and your unconscious conscious mind. Not even the unconscious, because the unconscious is the fucking subconscious mind. But when you make the subconscious mind conscious, now you're creating power because you're unifying masculine and feminine. Because it's not to say that you awakened, or because the subconscious mind can't think or do analytical thinking the way that the conscious mind can do it. But when you make the unconscious conscious, it's them being united.